I'd like to call to order the special Common Council meeting of March 19th, 2020. The time is 7:05. First order of business is the roll call. Hope, could you do the roll call for us?
Yep. Mayor Kim Smith.
Here.
Alderperson Tom Smith.
Here.
Alderperson Jim Olson. Here. Alderperson Dan Stevens.
Here.
Alderperson Diane Wolf.
Here.
And Alderperson Stephen Knott.
Present.
Thank you. Item 2 is public input. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes per individual. We're now open for public input. There's nobody in the audience, but I'll ask again for public input. And final call asking for public input. There's nobody present, so I'm going to move to Resolution 20-2020, which is for the declaration of emergency in the city of Onalaska. I'll read it in its entirety for the viewers, in case people are viewing from home and not attending tonight. So we have a resolution for the declaration of emergency in the city of Onalaska, whereas a novel strain of the coronavirus named COVID-19 has spread throughout numerous countries, including the United States, and whereas the World Health Organization has declared a public health emergency of international concern, and whereas the United States Department of Health and Human Services has declared a public health emergency, and whereas the state of Wisconsin has declared a public health emergency, and whereas the conditions created by the proclamation of these public health emergencies pose a continuing and substantial threat to public order, life, health, and safety of citizens of the city of Onalaska, and whereas the city of Onalaska, in cooperation with the local, state, and federal governmental entities, desire to take action to prevent exposure to and spread of the COVID-19 coronavirus, and whereas pursuant to Article 11, Section 3 of the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, Wisconsin Statute 66.0101, Wisconsin's Home Rule Statute, Wisconsin Statute Sections 64.19, 64.11, 62.11, Section 5, 66.0301, 66.0314, 323.14, Part 2, 323.11, Chapter 323, and all other applicable and/or pertinent provisions of state, federal, and/or laws and equity granting emergency powers to municipalities and that empower the Common Council to act in response to such emergency conditions under certain circumstances. And whereas the period of emergency shall be limited by any Common Council resolution to the time during which the emergency conditions exist or are likely to exist, and whereas the emergency power of the governing body and the chief executive officer confer under Wisconsin statute sections 323.11 and 323.14, Section 4, Chapter 323, Onalaska Code of Ordinances, Section 223, and all other applicable and/or pertinent provisions of state, federal, and/or law, includes the general authority to order by ordinance, resolution, or proclamation whatever is necessary and expedient for the health, safety, peace, tranquility, welfare, and good order of the city, village, or town in the emergency, and includes without limitation, because of the enumeration of the power to bar, restrict, or remove all unnecessary traffic, both vehicular and pedestrian, from local highways, notwithstanding any provision of chapters 341 to 349 or any other provisions of the law. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Onalaska hereby determines that an emergency now exists in the City of Onalaska, Wisconsin, and be it further resolved that the Common Council hereby authorizes and directs the mayor and city administrator, working with federal, state, and other local authorities, to take all reasonable and necessary steps to prevent exposure to and/or spread of the COVID-19 coronavirus within the City of Onalaska, including but not limited to those duties specified within Chapter 9 of the city's municipal code and Chapter 323 of the Wisconsin statutes. Be it further resolved that this resolution authorizes that the mayor and city administrator and their designees to preserve peace and order and to allow the city administrator to act in the interest of the community's health, safety, peace, welfare, and good order, including allowing, in addition to the mayor, the city administrator, or his designee to be authorized signatory on behalf of the city of Onalaska during this declaration of emergency. Be it further resolved that the city administrator or his designees, in consultation with the Common Council President, is hereby authorized to take such action as may be necessary and expedient to continue regular operations of the city of Onalaska, including, number 1, authorizing purchases and accepting bids which would otherwise require approval of the council, so long as such purchases or bids meet all statutory and local code requirements. Number 2, providing register of payments for invoices, payroll, and other payments. Number 3, authorizing temporary budget adjustments and transfers. Any action taken under this authorization shall be presented to the council for ratification as soon as practicable. Be it further resolved that the City of Onalaska is suspending all committee meetings except March 24th, 2020 Planning Commission and any Police and Fire Commission meetings required by statute until further notice. Common Council will continue to meet at its regular scheduled time. Be it further resolved that the City of Onalaska is waiving all payments from healthcare systems for city permitting that are related to the necessity of testing sites for the COVID-19 pandemic. Be it further resolved that all employee travel for city business is suspended and any travel shall be subject to the following. Number 1, a 72-hour quarantine is required beginning today for any employee that has traveled out of the state of Wisconsin in the past 5 days or is currently traveling. The city will compensate you for any lost work days. This will not affect your vacation. Employees who are able shall work from home. Number 2, we are strongly encouraging employees to cancel any travel they have planned. To emphasize this, a 72-hour unpaid quarantine will be required for any employee who decides to travel outside the state of Wisconsin for non-essential travel. If this type of travel applies to you, you are required to inform your department head. This takes effect for any travel on or after March 18th, 2020. An employee may choose to utilize vacation or personal days in lieu of unpaid leave. Item 3, employees are not prohibited from traveling outside of the state of Wisconsin for essential travel, which is defined as travel to and from their homes, medical providers, or child care facilities, and will not be subject to the 72-hour quarantine. And that concludes the resolution.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Alderperson Tom Smith, seconded by Alderperson Stephen Knott to approve Resolution 20-2020. Discussion. Alderman Knott.
A couple things. So with the, it's the second from the last whereas, where it says the period of the emergency shall be limited by any common council resolution to the time during which the emergency conditions exist or are likely to exist. Who determines that emergency conditions are still existing or are likely to exist?
I believe the Common Council, but I'll refer to the city administrator. He agrees. Which paragraph was that?
It's the second from last whereas.
Okay, thank you.
That is correct. The council is taking action to declare the emergency, therefore the council takes action to undeclare the emergency.
So the follow-up question then is, can two or more alderpersons still call for a common council meeting, even during the declared emergency? And if so, what's the timeline for meeting on that?
Okay. I believe so, but this would be an attorney question unless...
That's correct. I mean, the action is to suspend the committee meetings, not the council meetings. So there's would be no restriction on calling special meetings or the regular scheduled meetings.
Okay. But I'm talking if we need to, if two or more of us believe that we should meet before the next 30-day cycle, do we still have that opportunity even during the declared emergency?
Correct. You're not restricting the common council's actions at all.
Okay.
I think I would offer, Eric, maybe just for clarity, when it says that the Common Council will continue to meet, we could add a provision in there, continue to meet as scheduled or as whatever the wording would be for normally, or a special meeting may be called under the normal rules for calling a special meeting.
I would like to
Yeah,
have,
that's a good idea.
yeah, that's kind of where I was going.
Yeah, that way. It's on the second and the back near the middle. Be it further resolved that the City of Onalaska is suspending all committee meetings except blah, blah, blah. And it gets to the end. Common Council will continue to meet at its regularly scheduled time. And then we need to add a sentence there that says,
And may still, so I guess I'll be offering an amendment here. Let me figure out what paragraph was it? I remember you reading that.
we can get them all together.
The second, or
It's near the middle.
near the middle there, but I would still suggest that such language is technically superfluous. I mean, it may clarify for you, but I would make sure that then,
Well, I'm trying to fight perceptions potentially out there, too. We're doing an
right,
emergency
but and then that's
declaration. that is
my commentary
giving
is that it's
A lot of
the
power.
committee's-
exceeding power, yeah, and, I mean, we have citizens out there who, might not know everybody up on this bench
Right.
well, and I don't think it's unreasonable that some of them might have concerns. I'm just trying to come up with a declared check and balance that's easy for anyone
Right.
to see that, yeah, you call your council member and you can convince them there's a problem, and they get somebody else to do it, they're going to call them in. So, yeah.
Right.
Common Council may-
What I would warn against, though, is adding language that isn't specific to what's already in the ordinances. So if the ordinances doesn't specify specifically two council members may call a meeting, you're creating a new procedure versus the council operates normally, which includes already the opportunity for council members to call a meeting.
How about if we just say, special meetings may be called as needed? And then we would follow the
And that fits.
routine procedure for calling a special meeting.
The may is key there because otherwise we're not creating language that doesn't exist in the ordinances already.
Yeah, I understand that, too, yeah. Now, if the normal procedures are still in play, I just want that highlighted, that's all. Normal procedures for calling in an additional council.
So the wording I wrote down, and let's just do amendments all at once probably, but the wording I wrote down is special meetings may be called as needed. Special common council meetings.
That's fine.
Or should I just say special meetings? Because then that would give us an opportunity if any meeting needed to be held under a special reason, we could.
I guess I would suggest if the meetings rise to the necessity of outside of the common council meeting, if the meetings rise to being required to have them, and we're willing to all get together, then the need for the emergency is no longer in existence, and then we should cancel the emergency.
Okay. And if
I
there,
wouldn't want to necessarily do any committee because the whole purpose of this is so that we're not
the council will just
individually
decide.
deciding what's important, what's not important. The council does.
Okay.
Well, having a special common council, which we're already allowed to do,
To
I just
take-
want, and I'm understanding we can still do that in the emergency declaration. I just would like to see that written, that
Yep,
that
I
still
think-
applies.
I think you have that down.
That,
That's common council.
Yeah, that would allow us to take up any
Right.
issue that we need, yeah.
You're right. So the wording is, special common council meetings may be called as needed.
Can I just amend my original motion?
Well, let's see if anyone has any other changes.
You want it as needed, or special common councils can be called as?
May be called and then
maybe
just
called.
period.
May be called,
And then
Yeah.
period. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Good idea.
which
Okay.
just alludes back to the original pre-emergency declaration rules we have anyway, so, yeah.
Perfect. Good.
I'll go with that.
Good change. Any other comments?
Are we going to talk about are we resolving the amendment first, or are we just,
Okay, my idea was to do all the amendments in one, but we can do them one by one. That's fine.
I don't
Someone
really
just
have
needs to decide, make a motion and second it. Dan?
I don't really have an amendment, I just have other questions regarding the document and thought we could talk about it just for transparency. So if the preference is to do the amendment at the end, then I'll proceed with my questions.
Or make a motion to add the amendment. Either way, your choice.
I'll just go ahead and ask, under the section, be it further resolved, where it talks about authorizing purchases and accepting bids that would otherwise require approval of the council so long as the bids meet all statutory and local requirements. I understand the procedure, but just for transparency, can maybe, city administrator, if you can walk through an example of what what may happen where this is, needs to be utilized and how is it resolved? So my reading of this suggests that if, whether it was emergency or otherwise, something came in that required immediate attention, it could be taken care of, and then the council would ratify it at a later date.
Correct.
Do you anticipate certain
Nothing
transactions that
anticipated
would
now,
require
but depending on the course of what is occurring, that may arise. If there's supplies or special equipment needed or anything that would normally rise to the level of bid, and we do have purchasing policy, that anything that would rise that needs the council approval, that the mayor, in conjunction with the city administrator, would authorize those purchases and then come to council afterwards.
And the idea is to expedite purchases and not wait on ceremony in cases of an emergency, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Stevens. Are there, Alderperson Wolf?
Thank you. I don't have any amendments to add, but I just have a few questions, and I'm just following up with what I thought I heard you say. You said purchases with you and the mayor, is that in here?
Yeah.
No,
It would be
that was a
the-
misspeak.
It would be the council president.
council president.
It's-
Okay, and
The line above
I
is
just
the
want to
mayor.
clarify that. Okay, thank
The
you.
section prior to that are the things that the city administrator and the mayor will be responsible for.
Right.
And then when it comes to the purchasing and things that the council normally does, that would fall to the city administrator and the council president.
The purpose for that is if it's not likely to, according to the opinion of the council president, pass council action, then we probably shouldn't do it. So that's the reason for that portion there. So I apologize for misspeaking there. I apologize for misspeaking.
So a couple questions I have. So at the very top of page 2, where it starts out, be it further resolved that this resolution authorized that the mayor and city administrator, blah, blah, blah. So the last couple days, I've been able to attend 2 different League of Municipality meetings remotely that they've had, which for me was a very good experience because it made me realize I know we're not in this alone, but it's good for me to hear other municipalities' concerns, what they're all going through, because we're all in this together and we're all commiserating together with all the issues that everyone is sharing. So one thing that this paragraph that I'm wondering would address, someone brought up an example of if one of a restaurant and or local bar would not close, even though the governor has ordered them to be closed, they can do takeout orders. Would their police be would they be able to go in and shut them down, or could they fine them or whatever? So if I'm reading this paragraph, this would give our police department to be able to preserve order, possibly, to do something like that?
Right. The police, under all circumstances, have the right to preserve order. That's why we have them.
Right.
In specific, we're certainly authorizing preserving peace and order, but it's not necessarily allowing the police. It is to create policies that preserve the peace and order on behalf of the council for future council approval.
Okay.
In terms of the question regarding more than 10 people or congregants, the police would be enforcing the governor's dictates, and there are penalties as prescribed by state statute for that, including jail time and very large penalties.
Okay.
My understanding on the resolution, it isn't so much of a enforcement document as it is a procedural document, which is going to facilitate faster decision-making, financial transactions, things of that nature. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And if I may, that's absolutely the intent of this.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about the city hall and the personnel in the next agenda item. But it's certainly, we made comments on Wednesday that if you look through the news feed of the week prior to that, the big issue was should people take a cruise or not? And it's amazing within 7 days how quickly things had changed, that no one was even considering taking a cruise. Schools were now closed. The issues facing the city are changing rapidly, and Mayor Smith is aware of this in conversation, that it started changing daily, it then went hourly, and literally by the time we had the the next document's prepared and out, federal regulations changed on that one as well. I mean, it's changing almost minute by minute right now.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely that case, old or not, that the intent here is not to supersede the authority of the council, but is to more effectively and quickly deal with the policy decisions that need to be made quickly.
Thank you for that, Eric.
I just have
Diane?
a couple more. So then, and then the next paragraph, be it further resolved, the city administrator in consultation with the common council president. So that would be a joint effort that whoever is the council president with the city administrator at the time that would be a joint effort.
Or his designee?
Pardon?
Or the city administrator's designee?
Or as a designee.
We were trying to broaden, as the city administrator said, as we were trying to prepare for this meeting, we had to keep rewriting the resolution because everything kept changing.
Right.
So in this document, which we ended up with, we tried to broaden the wording so that if the city because we were like, okay, what if the city administrator is incapacitated? Now what are we going to do? So we tried to broaden the wording so that we could outline for our future selves what to do if the situation continues to deteriorate.
Right.
So that is hopefully what we did. I'm sure there's room for improvement. So if you see anything else, bring it up.
And then so at the very bottom, be it further resolved, we're talking about, the quarantine, number 1, 2, and 3. Do we have any issue with union contracts with any of these proposed paragraphs?
Keep in mind the quarantines, for the most part, unless it's personal reasons, we're establishing a date and the people still decide to take vacations that way, are paid quarantine, so there would be no issue on the union contract side regarding that. Effectively, anyone still planning on taking a vacation, that could be denied at this point in time prior to, but I would not indicate that there's any conflict under these heightened emergency circumstances.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Alderman Knott?
How do I need to make a motion for an amendment, and then we vote on that prior to the document? Is that what we do?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and so just, let's see if I have it down, that we had agreed that it's going to be, and may convene special common council meetings. Is that what we had was?
Special common council meetings may be called.
May be called.
Period.
Special common councils may be called. So I will make a motion that we amend be it further resolved that the city of Onalaska is suspending all committee meetings except the March 24th, 2020 Planning Commission and any Police and Fire Commission meetings required by statute until further notice. Common Council will continue to meet at its regularly scheduled time, to include also special Common Council meetings may be called.
Okay, we have a motion
I'll second that.
by Alderman Knott, a second by Alder Smith. Is there discussion on the amendment? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The motion for the amendment carries. Now back to the regular discussion. Alderman Stevens.
Just, again, for the sake of clarity, when we are talking about I'm looking at the section that deals with the 72-hour quarantine. Our geographic location being right next door to Minnesota, I want to clarify that if somebody went over to La Crescent, by policy, we would expect them to adhere to the 72-hour quarantine?
They could go over, under the resolution as it's currently written, they could go there for essential travel, which would be to go to and from their home, medical provider, child care facility. So the way that it's written right now, they could not go over there to go to Quick Trip.
Hours or
Quick Trip or something, yeah,
Yep.
right.
If their child care provider is there, they could go there.
Right, if they're home,
I don't have issue with that. I just wanted to clarify that because that's,
question.
some people think of that as part of our region, and it's 5 minutes away, so.
there's a million variables, so it's hard to anticipate all of them. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Smith, seconded by Alder Knott to approve Resolution 20-2020. Is that a roll call?
I believe so.
We'll answer as your name is called.
All right. Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Tom Smith,
Aye.
Jim Olson,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Diane Wolf.
Aye.
The motion for the resolution 20-20 passes unanimously. Item 4 is consideration of closure of building and staffing. I'll turn it over to our city administrator for this item background.
Thank you, Your Honor. Be reading into the record a letter dated March 19th, 2020. Dear Mayor Smith and Common Council members, to reduce the risk of community spread of COVID-19, I'm asking under City Ordinance 555 for mayoral proclamation with council ratification to approve the following procedures related to city services, visitor access, and paid leave as set forth in the mayoral proclamation attached hereto. Summary: most city services related to public visitors closed effective Wednesday, March 18th, 2020. Internal city operations and field operations will continue. Teleworking will be required to the extent possible for employees who can telework. Employees who cannot telework and whose job is focused on public visitors may be reassigned to other duties or, as a last resort, paid administrative leave for time they are unable to work. All employees will continue to accrue sick leave, and during 2020 will be allowed to have negative balances up to the amount the employee would earn in 2020 until such time as the leave has been earned. In addition, all employees will receive the equivalent of 2 weeks of emergency leave. Onalaska will overcome this by working cooperatively and supporting each other. If you have any questions or concerns, City Administration is always available to answer any questions you may have. Sincerely, Eric Rindfleisch, Onalaska City Administrator.
Thank you, Eric. And then with that being said, I'll move on to the mayoral proclamation for emergency order number 1. Whereas the United States of America and the state of Wisconsin have affected the worldwide pandemic of the novel coronavirus disease, COVID-19, which is a dangerous respiratory illness that can spread from person to person. And whereas COVID-19 pandemic and its prevalence in the southwestern Wisconsin region and throughout the United States continues a public health emergency. And whereas pursuant to City of Onalaska Ordinance 5-5-5, the mayor may proclaim, promulgate, and enforce orders, rules, and regulations. Now therefore, as the mayor of the City of Onalaska, I do hereby proclaim as follows. City services and public visitors were not already in effect, effective at 12:01 a.m. Friday, March 20th, 2020. Number 1, public-facing services at city facilities such as walk-up counters and other public spaces will close public visitor access until further notice. Public visitors will be allowed in the clerk's office for absentee voting purposes. Item 2, city offices are still open to internal staff for internal business operations. Item 3, field operations will remain in place. Item 4, teleworking will be required to the extent possible for those who have the ability to telework in consultation with and as approved by their supervisor. Item 5, managers and supervisors should pursue and accommodate workspace and meeting space changes that allow social distancing between the employees who continue to work in the office. Item 6, employees who work with the public and whose job duties are substantially reduced or eliminated by closing public visitor access and who cannot telework may be reassigned to help fulfill other essential services. Such employees who are not reassigned and cannot telework, as determined by their department head and the city administrator, will be paid administrative leave for their time out of work. Employees on administrative leave must remain on call and return to service at any time during their normal work hours. Paid leave for illness or quarantine. Our employees are our most important asset. To ensure they have adequate leave balances in the case of illness, quarantine, or respite, Item 1, emergency leave. All city employees, including hourly employees, will receive the equivalent of 2 weeks, which is 80 hours for most full-time employees, of emergency leave to use during the duration of the declaration of emergency. Emergency leave balances will appear on their April 10th, 2020 paychecks, but will be available for use during the current pay period. All employees should use this emergency leave only for illness, illness of a family member, quarantine, caregiver, or respite needs in relation to the COVID-19. Please recognize that our community may be at risk for COVID-19 for much or all of 2020, and this leave time may be needed to cover time of sickness or quarantine in the near term or the longer term in 2020. Item 2, sick leave. All employees may access their unearned 2020 projected sick leave balances immediately. And item 3, administrative leave. As mentioned in item 6 above, employees who cannot perform their job duties, cannot telework, and have not been reassigned to other services as determined by their department head and city administrator will be paid administrative leave for their time out of work. And this is dated on today's date of the 19th day of March 2020. And that was mayoral proclamation for emergency orders number 1.
We don't, I don't think so. We need a vote on it?
I
You
move
don't-
that we
don't.
approve mayoral proclamation for emergency order number 1.
Second?
Motion by Dan Stevens, seconded by Stephen Knott to approve the mayoral proclamation emergency orders number 1.
We have discussion?
Yep, discussion.
Question, I
Alder
guess,
Knott.
I thought with the passing of the resolution, we pretty much gave you the authority to do that, didn't we? I mean, do we have to vote on a proclamation from there? or
I
we
think
just
the
gave her
council, but even when these actions take place, we still want to have the council's ratification as soon as possible.
Okay.
And then I'll turn it over to Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Smith. You are correct for 2 reasons. First is a show of unity for the public to know that we're taking this obviously seriously, and for the employees to know that you have their back, that you're there to support them as well, not just the mayor, but also all
Okay.
the council. 2, well, the items are not unbudgeted per se, since we already are budgeting to pay staff full-time for the whole year. Potentially, there could become unbudgeted items, which while the resolution passed will allow us to do, and then come back to council later on. We want to make sure that the council's on board with this up front, that there may be costs involved for staff, but right now, I think we're good.
Okay.
In the future. Alder Smith.
I do have a question for Hope. Is it, you're able to handle all that quickly with all this new stuff?
Good question.
We'll make
Add
it
to your
work.
list.
Yes, we're adding it to the list. Ultimately, we want to do something that protects the employees. They are our biggest asset. And so right now, we are actually in the middle of payroll. And so this is something that, while it may impact this payroll, we're not probably going to have a whole lot implemented this payroll. We'll still handle it, we'll get them paid, but we'll get the codes set up shortly after this payroll. I will probably be setting up a lot of codes this weekend. And it's just a matter of, again, it's protecting the employees and making sure that they understand that we're looking out for their best interests, and that's all of our department heads and Eric and Amanda and all of you, helping us out by doing that. And so there's a lot of work that Eric and Amanda especially have put together in getting this stuff, and poor Kim's been spending a lot of time on the phone. So we do appreciate it. And so I know this is a special meeting, and things that are kind of being put on you guys at the last minute. We'll handle it. We've got a good team, and we've got people willing to help out. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you in advance for all your efforts too, because I know that's a lot.
Yeah, staff has definitely, they're always there for us, but this has just really brought out the best in our staff, our community. It's been good. And I think that this proclamation and just giving forward the extra 80 hours, I mean, the number one thing we're battling right now isn't illness at this moment, it's fear. And I think that this goes a long way to help allay that. So I appreciate your support in moving forward. Alder Olson.
Can you check with any federal representatives that we have for any future assistance from the government, if there's anything available for disaster things like this?
We've actually been gotten some information today, and honestly, we haven't had a whole lot of time to look at it. Part of the codes that I'm going to be putting together is so that we can track, and we've told our department heads to track expenses so that if there is federal aid, that we can get some of those dollars back, that we can track that. And that is some work to do, but at the same time, as a team, all of the department heads are going to work to track all of that. And part of the reason why we need to set up these codes appropriately is so that Fred and I will work together to make sure all of the payroll codes are put together appropriately so that we can track the information employee-wise. So if there's some funding that we need to get back, that we can get that back.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to kind of continue on with that, I mean, the city, this will cause a financial impact on the city. We've closed the Omni Center. We're supposed to be opening for registration for spring programming. We're losing all the revenue that we normally have. So there are going to be long-standing financial implications from this that we aren't even, right now we're just trying to take care of our people. We're trying to make sure we can provide police services, we can provide fire services, people can vote, they can still have water, sewer, all the things that our community relies on us for. We're trying to make sure that those services are in place and protect our people, their health, both mentally and physically. So I'll put it back to Eric then if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, if I may, just over a week ago, the state had 4 cases. It's now listed at 155 cases in less than just over a week. And if you listen to the county press conference regarding the one household, the count only has 1 confirmed case, but the assume is that the entire household is it. So keep that in mind, that when we look at 155, that does not count any members that are presumed infected as well. I mean, it's here and it's among us. I don't say that to create any new fear. What I do want to bring that up, though, because you have a remarkable team. Every employee within this organization that I've interacted with truly cares about providing service to this community. They love the city and they love the organization they work for. And it's been a pleasure to work with everybody through these very trying times. But it has been trying. We make no mistake that employees are on edge. And there's concern for not just their jobs, but also their own mortgage payments and their family members, older and younger, and their mortgage and rent payments as well. And despite all of that, they're still doing remarkable work on your behalf. So thank you all for your support. Well, we haven't voted on it yet, I guess, but you should take pride in the job that you do as elected officials here, representing truly a great organization from top down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Eric, I know one of the emails that I think all alders received earlier this week, it talked about will municipalities that buy additional supplies and make other unanticipated expenditures in 2020 associated with responding to the COVID virus, will it jeopardize our eligibility to receive expenditure restraint program payments in 2021? So I guess it would be nice for maybe you to address that, because I just want to make sure that we kind of understand, because I didn't know whether or not salaries would affect that and such.
Expenditure restraint calculations are budget year to budget year. And the calculations do not require going back to correct that. So every year we redo the budget to make sure that we are as required by the Constitution to have a balanced budget. But for that calculation that we're looking at for future years, no, that will not be impacted by over expenses. But this is absolutely the kudos to Fred and for his 39 years here, and to this council and all previous councils. The city has a very healthy reserve, and we could probably use that reserve for these unbudgeted expenses for our response to COVID-19 without even impacting our bond rating or anything else to do. That's the importance of having that reserve, is that we're not really putting ourselves at risk right now. Other communities I've been at, you may have 3-month reserve. We are much larger than that.
Thank you.
That's outstanding.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Motion was made by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Knott, to approve the mayoral proclamation for emergency order number 1. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 5 is closed session. To consider a motion to convene in closed session under Section 19.85, Paragraph 1, Paragraph E of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or the conducting of specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons required a closed session. Specifically, discussion and negotiation regarding the proposed sanitary sewer agreement with the City of La Crosse. If any action is required in open session as a result of the closed session, the council will reconvene in open session to take the necessary action and/or continue on with the printed agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Alder Stevens,
Second.
seconded by Alder Olson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Have to be a voice vote?
Roll call.
Or when your name is called, or nay, when your name, please vote when your name is called.
Dan Stevens.
Aye.
Diane Wolf.
Aye.
Stephen Knott.
Aye.
Tom Smith.
Aye.
Jim Olson.
Aye.
The vote was unanimous. We are in closed session at 7:45. And this item should be relatively short.